Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits, and I just ran across a really fun stitch that I wanted to show you. I believe it's called the basket stitch, and it's just a really simple stitch, but I think it's got such a great texture to it. So I'm going to show you how to do this stitch, knitting it flat and also knitting it in the round, as there are slight differences in the two. So let's take a look. All right, well, let's take a look at how to do this basket stitch with flat straight needles and knitting it flat first, and then we'll look at how to do it in the round. So with the flat needles, it's just a 4-row repeat, and the very first row that you're going to do for this beautiful stitch is just to knit all stitches. So that will be row 1 is knitting all. So let's knit to the end of this row for row 1. Okay, so row 1 is knitting, row 2 is just going to be all purl. So row 2 is on the back side of the work, so on the back side, row 2, we're just going to purl all stitches. All right, we did a knit row and a purl row. Now it's time to do something a little bit different on rows 3 and 4, but still very simple. Row 3 is going to start with a knit stitch. Then the next stitch we're going to slip, but we're going to slip it as if to purl and with the yarn in back. So as if to purl, so just slide it from one stitch to, or one needle to the other with your yarn in back. And then we're going to go back to a knit stitch. So it's those 2 stitches repeated, knit and slip with yarn in back, knit, slip with yarn in back, all the way to the end of the row. And we're going to end with 1 knit stitch. And end with that knit stitch. Okay, so that was row 3. Now the last row of our sequence here is going to still, again, start with a knit stitch. And then we're also going to do a slip stitch next as well, but instead of with the yarn in back, we're going to put the yarn in front. We're still going to slip it as if to purl, but now the yarn is in the front. Okay, then move the yarn back to the back again, because now you're going to knit a stitch. Yarn in front, slip, that's our 2 stitch repeat, yarn in back, knit, yarn in front, slip, knit, slip. And we will do that to the end of the row, and again ending with 1 knit stitch. Okay, so that is the basket stitch. It makes for such a beautiful texture. This is with it knitting in the flat on straight needles. So let's take a look now at knitting this in the round. There's just a few adjustments to some of the stitches and the rows. I just started here with a little swatch on double pointed needles, but the same concept is going to apply if you do circular needles knitting in the round. I'm just doing it on a small swatch with double pointed needles. So I'm at the beginning of my round, and again I'm going to start my first row with knitting all. So that's the same as before. We're knitting all the stitches on round number 1. Okay, round 2, with knitting it in the flat, round 2 was purling all, but since in the round you always do the opposite of what it is with knitting flat, so round 2 is going to be, again, just knitting all stitches. Okay, round 3 is going to be just like round 3 with knitting it flat. It's no different from the round. Round 3 is going to be knitting 1 and with yarn in back, slipping it as if to purl. So knit 1 and slipping it. Knit 1, slipping it with the yarn in back. So we will do that to the end of this round as well. Okay, round 4 and our final round for this sequence is going to be the opposite of what we did with knitting it flat. We are going to actually purl one. Start with, instead of knitting, we're going to purl one. We're going to again slip the next stitch, but instead of with the yarn in front like we did on round 4 with knitting flat, we're going to keep the yarn in back, slip it as if to purl. Now bring your yarn back to the front for another purl stitch. Yarn in back for a slip, yarn in front for a purl. Slip, purl, and we will do that until the end of the round. All right, that is the end of those 4 rounds. So you can see that it looks very much similar to the knitted flat, but just a little different sequence of stitches than with knitting it flat. So there is the beautiful basket stitch, and so now I need your help because I can't decide what to knit with this beautiful stitch. I'm thinking maybe a scarf or a blanket would be really pretty, or I could knit it in the round for a hat. Of course, dishcloths are always a great way to learn some new stitches. So endless possibilities. Please comment below and tell me what your idea is for this wonderful basket stitch or what you might plan to make with it. So I hope you found this helpful. If so, please give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications of new videos all about knitting tips and stitches and creative patterns. Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy knitting.